Hey, 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 Edward Paulantonio here, back with Common Mansplaining. I put out a video not too long ago, a little short video with Michael Knowles and Cross the Line as he was debating some college students, and everybody loved it. So I thought it would be a good idea to go check out one of those videos that Michael Knowles has and react to it in real time so you can see the genius that is Michael Knowles.
So much for sitting down.
Hi.
Julia?
Yes.
Aman. Yep. So you both came to the speech, huge fans of mine, agreed with everything I have to say. Is that right?
Wrong.
Wrong. Got it. Okay. So you disagreed. Did I change your mind at all during the speech?
No.
No.
No. I think I'm still the same.
No opinions, even slightly modified?
I mean, it might have gotten worse. I'm not sure.
So what are the big disagreements?
Well, of course, gender was a big talk of the night. But I think we disagree on very fundamental values, whether it be like a religion and its role in government, foreign affairs, immigration.
What about foreign affairs, do you think? I bet we disagree on gender, and we probably disagree on religion. But what about foreign affairs?
I'm guessing you're fairly isolationist when it comes to Ukraine and NATO and the United States.
No, not in principle. I'm probably an imperialist. I think empire is a natural form of government. So I might disagree with certain conflicts, like I think it was stupid of us to aggress in Ukraine. But in principle, I don't have a problem with empire.
And in reality?
Well, I would disagree that NATO expansion or Western relations in the region were an act of aggression, whether it be like Crimea or anywhere else like in Ukraine.
Well, the Russian invasion of Crimea was an aggression on the part of Russia, without question. I think it would have been more prudent to treat Ukraine as a buffer state. I think buffer states can have good political effect. I think Jordan is a good example of a buffer state. And so I can at least sympathize, though I don't side with someone like Vladimir Putin, but I can sympathize as to why he would not want NATO, which has consistently expanded for 30 years now, to be so close on his borders, especially in the breadbasket of Europe. And so,
yeah, I have to agree with that 100%. Also, I mean, I think Putin is very dangerous, a lot more dangerous than I originally anticipated when this conflict began. He was portrayed in the media like he was some kind of crazy guy, but in reality, he's much more calculating, much more intelligent than they originally, they propagandized him to be online. But the other thing too, though, is even without some of the recent events. And the overall expansion of NATO over the last 30 years, we did some crazy things to jeopardize our relationship with Russia. Our staged coup in Ukraine in 2014 was absolutely across the line. Basically, their first and only democratically elected leader in a long, long time, and we messed it up. Like we overturned it because they were too cozy with Russia. So definitely we crossed the line. I could see why Putin would be upset. Doesn't give him the right to do what he did, but I can see why he'd be upset.
So, Kissinger said that this was a needless provocation and that it was a bad idea to have Ukraine join NATO, though once Russia invaded, the die was cast, in his view. Maybe we disagree in practice, but not in principle. But the other stuff, you think transgenderism is real, I assume?
Well, yes. I mean, I think it refers to a real reality. That gender, I mean, it doesn't refer to a biological reality. You kept referring to that. And I think in practice, it refers to an expression.
Well, I don't think the word biology appeared in my speech. I don't think it's a true conception of human nature. I don't think human nature really works that way.
In what way do you mean?
I don't think that it is possible to be a different sex than one's body would imply.
Well, that's a separate argument. We're talking about gender, which is like an expression of traits we associate. I mean, they tend to overlap with sex. Obviously, we associate height, strength, confidence, color blue, whatever the hodgepodge of details or characteristics, like male, for example, or other things.
I don't associate the color blue with male.
I think
Even baby boys?
Oh, sure, that's true. You're right, baby
Western
boys. But you're wearing a blue shirt and blue pants. I don't think you're a man.
But exactly, like these expressions of traits.
But you're saying that there's a distinction between sex and gender that in as much as a man can, wear pink and bake brownies, But I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying that men can't act in a way that's somewhat effeminate. I'm just, I guess I disagree with the notion that if a boy wears pink and bakes brownies, that he is in some true sense a girl. I don't think that's possible.
Well, if they identify as a girl, then they would be.
If I identified as a rhinoceros, that wouldn't make me a rhinoceros.
Are you a rhinoceros?
No.
Rhinoceros has like a biological definition,
So does female.
whereas woman does not.
So does woman.
I think woman does.
I think you might be thinking of female. The woman, it has like a definition,
Well,
yeah, but it has nothing to do with like genitalia or chromosomes or physical appearance.
So female, I think you might be getting it a little reversed. Usually you would say woman refers to sex and female would refer to nouns, for instance, like gendered nouns, but now it refers to this gender ideology. But use whichever term you like.
Yeah, see, that's kind of complicated because it has changed a lot over the years. One thing that you have to understand when you play this game is that there is a war over the language itself, and a lot of these words have shifted definition. Now, whether or not they should shift definition is a different argument. I believe that they shouldn't have, but you also kind of have to acknowledge when they have. Like I hate to say it, but it is probably true that the transgender movement has probably successfully won the war over the words man and woman. While it is still probably the first definition in most dictionaries that a woman is, for example, an adult human female. It definitely isn't the first definition in all the dictionaries, and almost every dictionary now at least includes some form of, this person expresses as a woman or identifies as a woman. So it's, even though it's a circular definition, it's probably a battle that has already been won, unfortunately, by the postmodernists. And that's a shame. It truly is.
Why doesn't it have something to do with bodies?
I mean, bodies are like an aspect of it, but that's not what it's referring to. It's referring to someone's identity.
And where does the identity come from?
From their conception of themselves.
They conceive of their identity, but on what basis?
Oh, where do you get your basis of your gender identity?
His body.
My body.
Is that
Okay,
it?
Are you tall or short?
I think I'm the average American height. Okay. I'm shorter than Aaron Judge, taller than a pygmy.
Yeah, but those, for example, those categories are relative.
Yeah.
They can refer, so you're implying that because this thing refers to a body, for example, so does, tall or short, but those categories are relative. They don't refer, there's no absolute tall, like if you're 5'9", you fall into finally short, you finally make it into, it's a spectrum.
This is a bad analogy because male and female is a binary choice.
Right, but when it comes to sex,
A relatively human constructed spectrum that refers to...
No, so for height, there are people who hit just about every measurement all along, say from 4 feet to 7 feet.
And the same thing would be with gender expression.
No.
Yes.
Well, so yeah, he's technically right. So gender expression, there could be a spectrum, but the gender itself is the where the war is being waged, where the battle is being fought, right? So the gender itself, most would argue it's still tied directly to the sex that they have. So I'm not sure why. Now, here's the difference. Now, there's a small group of people in the world who truly do feel like they are a different sex than they are. And that's what a true transgender person is. Now, what has happened is there's been a lot of cases in recent history where they call you transgender simply if you say, I identify as anything other than. And that's not really what makes you transgender. What makes you transgender is true gender dysphoria, which is the actual medical feeling like you are like you're like a female trapped in a male's body or a male trapped in a female's body. That's actually a remarkably small percentage of the people who are actually claiming to be transgenders. Much larger number of people that claim it that aren't actually it.
So what people can express themselves in a variety of ways, existing from like hyper.
You don't think there's a range?
No, I think it's men and women.
No scale.
No.
Okay.
I think men can be effeminate.
Right.
and I think women can be masculine, and I
But
think
wouldn't that like be a scale?
No, see, because once again, just because I wear pink on a given day, or because I choose to bake brownies, which I happen to love brownies, by the way, that doesn't actually change my sex. It doesn't change the way I feel about myself. I could bake brownies all day long and still feel absolutely 100% as masculine as I want to. That's got nothing, there's almost no relationship there.
no, because I think men should act like men and women should act like women.
Okay, so
Okay, but
we're
that's
really
how
gonna
you,
go.
how you think
so
people should
now we're coming
act.
to a value judgment that they should act, that they can, but they should, you know.
Yeah, like I think my eye should be used for seeing. I don't think my eye should be used for playing golf, for instance. I think that things can be known by their function. So if you have a womb, you could bear a child in principle. Maybe not particularly, but in principle you could bear a child. You don't have a womb, and you can't. And this tells us something about your sex, and it tells us something about your gender,
Okay.
which I don't think are really so neatly distinct.
At what line do I stop becoming a woman? Is it
Well,
I don't
mean,
think you'll ever stop being a woman. I think you're just a woman.
okay?
Just like I don't know if that's her natural hair color. I don't. But there will never be a situation where her natural hair color is anything other than what her natural hair color is. She could dye it. It might temporarily look different, but it's not actually changing the natural hair color. Same thing with her eyes. She could wear contacts and make it look different, but it doesn't actually change her eye color. That's genetically implanted and it doesn't change.
So
And I think that's a nice thing. I think it's good to be a woman.
No, I love being a woman.
Yeah.
I believe these categories we've created that map onto sex of male and female are not useful categories for categorizing people, as evident by the fact that people are actively rejecting these categories.
Wait, so because like 7% of people in the world are rejecting it. Sorry, 7% of the people in a particular nation are rejecting it. That makes it unuseful. I don't get it.
There's an entire generation of people who are telling you these categories for existing do not work for them, and they're rejecting them. They don't want to exist under them. They feel they don't actually, represent them, and they're having to ramshackly construct their own identities.
The Olympics keeps redefining sex because they keep redefining what a woman is. And I didn't think that sex could be redefined, but like how they try to determine like if she's a woman enough to play in women's sports, like
Because they let that
at first it
boxer,
was
that male
like-
boxer fight the ladies.
well, like at first it was like
That wasn't even a male boxer.
genitalia,
He was.
but that got
his
inappropriate.
medical records leaked out of Russia. There was one test in a boxing league, and he's a chromosomal man.
Yeah, that's why I think they moved on from chromosomes.
Yeah, right.
Right, because heaven forbid we use something that actually works to categorize people.
Because he's a man. So they said, oh, yikes, we can't have him box the women.
Well, before it wasn't chromosomes. They didn't care about chromosomes.
Before
they
people knew
wanted
what
to
a man
stick
and a
your
woman
hand in their pants and decide.
I don't know about the Special Olympics. I haven't watched that.
I think it was the regular
It's not the Special Olympics.
Or whatever Olympics.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did. Okay, I guess we disagree on gender.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever wonder though when you say these categories don't work, they're not helpful, they're not useful? Do you wonder why societies everywhere have used these categories, man and woman, for all of history until like 2015 here? And in most parts of the world, they still use those categories.
Forever.
There's a lot of reasons why. Obviously, like a feminist critique would be that patriarchy, oppression, power, control are the people that they're categorizing.
What?
But like maybe in a time they would have been useful. At a time when I think hunter-gatherer societies, when there's an entire sex of people who are generally physically weaker. Let's have them stay home and take care of the kids. And there's an entire sex of people who are taller, stronger. It's easy to categorize them because they can do this thing. But we've moved beyond that.
But I'm not even talking about hunter-gatherer societies. I'm talking about like 2009.
Yeah, great.
Well,
even
a lot of time between
trans
hunter-gatherer.
people existed. They existed back then too.
I don't think they exist now.
They're telling you they exist.
Right, but people say all sorts of things that aren't true. Like the people exist, but they don't. Like if I told you I were a rhinoceros, I would not be a rhinoceros. I would just be wrong.
Yeah, so this is a claim that's made often. It's like the transgenderism kind of just was always there, and the only reason that it hasn't shown up is because those people didn't feel comfortable enough coming forward with their transgenderism. I don't have sufficient evidence to assume that that's true. Maybe it's true, but I don't see much evidence for it. Like, I don't see any records of someone saying, I've always felt like a woman even though I'm a man. Like, I don't see any records like that. I do see records like people cross-dressing in the past. That's not the same thing as transgenderism. And I wonder if these people conflate the two, like the trans allies. I wonder if they conflate transvestite with transgenderism, because it's not the same. Just like it's not the same to, like, transgenderism is the actual feeling like you are the other sex, not you just don't neatly conform to the expression roles that are in society. That's not transgenderism. That's you being rebellious or emo or whatever the nonconformist of the day is. That's not transgenderism. Transgenderism is the actual feeling like you are at odds with the biological sex that you were born with. So I don't know where people get that. Like, in the past they were transgender. I don't know where it comes from.
I mean, sure.
Where's the flaw in that logic?
I think we just disagree at the reality of the people existing.
And I want you all to pay attention to the fact that he keeps on saying reality. Just pay attention to that for later.
But you're saying the basis on which you know that the guy says he's a woman, that he is a woman, the basis is that he says so. I'm saying, how do you know he's not wrong? How's he, like, if I say...
I don't think you can be wrong in a socially constructed system.
Oh, yes, you can. I promise you can. I thought I was hot stuff. I thought I was a know-it-all all of my life. I found out I was wrong. There are tons of situations where a social construct, you can just be 100% mistaken about it all the time.
Is race biologically determined or socially constructed?
Socially constructed.
Okay. What if I told you I'm a black man?
His
Am I a
license
black man?
says white.
My license says white, but identifies.
I'm not
black.
asking about your license. I'm not asking how white you are. I'm just asking, if I told you I am a black man, like Congolese heart of darkness black, would you believe me?
No.
You could be.
Oh,
yes,
my
but no.
Yeah, like...
I could be, but no. I could be or no?
Because I know you.
I wouldn't believe you, but yeah, if I didn't...
You would not believe me.
But it's a socially... I mean, I think the construct...
It's socially
race,
constructed.
You're proving the point that race is not a useful construct to have anymore.
No, he's proving the point that you can just be wrong.
It's a socially identifiable category.
You don't... It's not useful. Meaning,
not anymore.
Meaning you can't... Race does not allow for any distinctions. It doesn't give you any useful information.
Race is still useful for descriptions. I'm sorry. Even if we don't want it to be, it is. If an officer asks you, describe the suspect, you're going to use race.
You can't draw any conclusions, so you can't say that I am not a black as ink Congolese man.
There's so much more to say. First, though, go to goodranchers.com. Preparing the perfect spiral hand. If you're asking me about the quality, you will not at Good Ranchers or get anybody $1 off your order and free express shipping. Good Ranchers.
Category, for example, of like water, it refers like generally to like a real, but it doesn't tell you like, is it salty water, this type of water, that type of water. I'm telling you, these categories we have, like a label for water, is not sufficient and isn't useful in a social dynamic anymore. These ideas of there's classes of ethnic people that are black and white and there's a line between it. There's not. It's a spectrum of people, both biologically and socially, and these categories don't work, and people are actively rejecting them, especially in the gender category.
Well, I do happen to agree with the fact that I think race is a worthless category. I think we should abolish the categories of race for the most part, with the exception of perhaps describing someone's skin color. But I think you can do that without actually referring to their race necessarily. I mean, of course, you're going to say it, right? He was dark-skinned. I mean, that's kind of like saying what their race is or whatever. But I aside from that, he's right that it serves no function in society, or should serve no function in society.
Would you drink salt water?
All right,
No.
there we go.
So it is useful to know if the water is salty or not.
Yes.
But you just said it's not useful to have
like
these
the category of
distinctions.
just water, just telling you this is water. It doesn't tell you what kind of water it is, all the details about the water. There's different types of water.
Right, so I'm saying I'm a Congolese guy. Am I telling the truth or not?
I mean, you're from Congo?
What do you think?
I think you're Italian.
You don't know. Okay. So we disagree on race and gender. We possibly disagree on foreign policy. Is there anything on which we agree? Or are there other areas where you came in saying, I disagree with you?
Well, I was actually shocked that you are against gay marriage.
Why did that shock you?
I don't know. I thought we were beyond that.
Barack Obama, in 2011, opposed gay marriage.
Barack Obama is bisexual.
Well, now we might agree on something. But that's unsubstantiated. Allegedly, reportedly, I'm not making any claims. Okay. Regardless,
Right.
he still opposed it until 2011. He was considered quite progressive and leftist for his time, which was only 13 years ago. Not even 13 years ago. It was 8 years ago he left office. So I'm just surprised that you would be surprised that I, a Catholic conservative, would believe what all the Catholics and conservatives have always believed.
I mean,
so people like to forget stuff like Obama was against gay marriage. When people, it's very easy to judge someone like Michael Knowles. They're like, oh, you're a bigot, for not being in favor of gay marriage. And yet, would you ever call Obama a bigot? Right? Even though he held the exact same belief very, very recently. Of course not.
as far as I'm aware, isn't your Pope pretty inclusive of gay marriage?
Oh, right.
No. He says God can't bless sin, so he's totally opposed to gay marriage. And he also said "c'è già troppa," which literally translates, please pardon the dirty word, that there's already too much faggotry.
No.
That's the translation. That was like a few months ago.
Oh,
Nothing else we agree on?
I'm sure there are fundamental things like murder is wrong, but I guess in the political economy we're talking about now, I doubt.
That's good though, because if murder's wrong, then that means murder's wrong because
I think so.
not because of the body.
I don't have
everybody thinks
I don't have to refer to something out there.
right. It's a first principle. It's just a first principle of practical reason, which it's what C.S. Lewis would call the Tao or the natural law. So okay, we agree that natural law. But
No,
you disagree.
we don't believe in natural law.
You just said you do.
No.
You believe in first principles. You're saying you don't need to prove that murder's wrong. You just
He does. He just doesn't want to say it.
know it's wrong.
There is no proving it's wrong. You can't.
Right. You begin with that. It's a premise. Natural law.
Well, no. There's no absolute. There's no like abject morality.
You just said it's wrong to commit murder.
So he just said, right, that there's no object. Meanwhile, this whole time he's been talking about the reality of things, and now he denies reality at its core, right? At its foundation. This whole time while talking about, I believe this stuff is real, transgenderism is real, and yet when you dig just one level deeper, it's like, well, what's real about this stuff? It's like, no, nothing's real. Yeah, it's a game. It's this whole thing. Postmodernism is just a philosophical game.
To me,
But not to me. I agree with you.
I can accept that it's relative and not objective.
You previously said we can agree on fundamental things. Murder is wrong.
We can agree. That's just.
Why do we agree?
I guess we both agree murder is wrong.
Why?
I don't know how you can. I guess because God told you that's wrong. But for me,
Well, we can agree it's also from the natural law.
well, both selfishly, it's good for me to agree that legally it should be illegal because that incentivizes like a stable society. But also, I have empathy for people.
What?
And I'd like to see them not murdered. So that's my incentive for.
Okay, so the reason why his explanation doesn't work is because he's like, well, the reason it's wrong is because I feel empathy for others, and because I feel empathy for others, that makes murder wrong. But the problem is you can't stop there. That's not the end of the chain, right? So the next question would be, okay, why do you feel empathy for other human beings? And you're like, well, because I kind of value human life. Okay, why do you value human life? Eventually, you get to one of two things. You either get to God, right? You say, well, because God told me. Or two, you get to what's called an axiom. You just say, this is just a value I have and there's no reason for it, right? And for those of you out here who don't think that you have axioms, guess again. We all have them, every single one of us, and there's no such thing as a person that doesn't have what Michael Knowles earlier referred to as first principles. It's just this is what we believe, and there's no other reason except for this is what we believe. A common one is human life has value. Now, a new aged version of that is that human conscious experience has value, but it's still the same thing. It's the same thing. So if you value that, then you'll get from there to having empathy, which will get from there to murder is wrong. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start with an axiom somewhere.
Or believing it's wrong, both practically and morally to me. I reject the idea that there's an absolute morality.
Except for he has moral statements with truth value that he tracks back to his first axiom. Now, the only thing that he's making the claim now of is he's saying that these only have truth value with regard to him. They don't have truth value with regard to everyone. But we all, again, instinctively know this is wrong. This is another one of our intuitions, another one of our moral axioms. We know that kicking a baby in the head is just wrong. No matter who you are, no matter what you're into, no matter what your personal preference is, it's just wrong. We all know this, and so, therefore, one can extrapolate that objective morality is actually a true thing.
Well, we almost agreed. We agreed before you got him to not agree, which is close. That's a start.
Amon and Julia did not end up.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So, another classic example of people in postmodern opinions just talking around in circles, of Michael Knowles making them look silly by asking very simple questions like, am I a rhinoceros? Am I a black person? If not, why? And how do you know? And the reason we know often is empiricism, right? We just know that, everybody knows that I'm not black because my skin isn't dark. And that's all. Everybody knows that I'm a male, right? It's not that complicated. And when you try to overcomplicate things like this, that's what gets life into it just gets into such trouble in a society where no two people think the same things. If I say woman, the word woman, and your mind goes in one direction and my mind goes in a different direction, then we have lost the ability to fundamentally understand each other, and we've lost basic communication. We've lost basic cohesion at the societal level. You might as well not even have a society at that point. Or you might as well group the societies into two different blocks. One block of people who understand that this stuff is just bare bones basic. You don't need to complicate it. And the other group who can complicate it all they want. And I bet you we come back in 100 years and I could tell you exactly which one of those societies is still left. Anyway, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Common Mansplaining. I'll catch you next time.